Yo, what's going on? This is Rocket here. Welcome back to a brand new video. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you the fundamentals to recording gameplay for your montages and edits. I'm going to cover stuff like how to record extremely high FPS, how to record ultra high quality, i.e. 4K, even when you don't have a 4K monitor, as well as then how to set up proxies so you can edit those without any lag, as well as how to make your high FPS clips super smooth even on a 60 FPS monitor or in a 60 FPS YouTube video by using frame blending, as well as talking about a couple of other options you have when using high FPS. And I'll also be mentioning a couple other options you have with regards to your quality and your frame rate using AI. So an AI upscaler that can turn your low quality videos to high quality, and an AI frame interpreter that can make your 60 FPS or lower clips much higher, i.e. 120, 240 FPS. If you guys find this video helpful, make sure you slap a like on it and subscribe for more videos like this, as well as leave a comment with any other videos you'd like to see on the channel. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So this video is going to be in several parts. If you're not interested in the high FPS section, but you are interested in the high quality recording section, then just skip to the appropriate parts. I'll have the timestamps in the description. They should also be on the timeline at the bottom of the screen. But to start off with, I'm going to cover how to record at high FPS. So I'm going to be using a software called OBS, or Open Broadcaster software. I imagine you will have heard of it already. If you haven't, then here is the website. It's completely free and open source, so no risk of malware or getting stuck behind a paywall or anything like that. And it is cross-platform on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So you can go ahead and download it from obsproject.com, and I'll leave a link to it down in the description. And then once you've downloaded it, let's go ahead and start it. Now you should always run OBS in administrator mode. I'm not 100% sure whether it makes a difference anymore, but I know it used to. I would ensure that your recording takes priority over your game or anything like that, so it doesn't stutter or anything like that. Again, if you need to, you can adjust the priority in your task manager, but I've never run into any issues like that in the last 5 years or so. So as long as you have a decently powerful PC, you shouldn't have that issue either. So this is OBS. I'm going to enable the preview. If you've never used this software before, then I'd recommend going and watching some tutorials on how to, use the interface, because I'm really only going to cover the very basics for recording at high FPS, so i.e. the actual settings themselves. But as you can see, I've got a game capture here, and that's currently set to capture CS2, so that's the game that I'm choosing to record. Now, for the high FPS recording section of this video, I'm going to recommend that you only do this with games that you can hit a really high frame rate in, so CS, Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite, games like these, because in order to record that frame rate, you need to be able to hit that frame rate. So for example, if I want to record at 240 FPS, I need to hit at least 240 FPS in the game while I'm recording in order to record at that frame rate. So a lot of games that'll just be out of question unless you have an incredible computer. So just bear that in mind when you're doing this. One other misconception that I do hear, which you actually don't need to consider for this, is the refresh rate of your monitor. So let's say you have a 60 Hertz monitor. As long as your game is hitting or exceeding the frame rate that you're trying to record at, then it does not matter what frame rate your monitor can display. And even if you have a 60 Hertz monitor and you're not able to see 120, 240 FPS, whatever it is, I'll explain later why it's a good idea to record at these frame rates because of the natural motion blur you can make and how you can slow the clips down and stuff like that. But for montages and edits, it's a great idea to get your gameplay clips in as high of an FPS as possible, because it just allows you that flexibility when you're editing. Of course, you don't have to go absolutely ridiculous. You don't need to be recording at 360, 480 FPS, unless, I don't know, you're playing Minecraft and you want to make motion blur with like 8 different frames at once. But yeah, so in the game capture, you can set it to capture a specific window. If you have your game open, then you can go ahead and select it in here. If you're planning to record CS2, then make sure in your properties panel, you put this launch option. I'll put that in the description. Otherwise, OBS won't be able to record it. You can do your own research on this. As far as I'm aware, there are no adverse effects to using this launch option, except you may get your trust factor slightly reduced, but there's no clear evidence of that ever happening, and Valve don't really comment on it, and they're intentionally vague. So I guess use this at your own risk, but you shouldn't have any issues. For every other game, pretty much, you'll be able to just select it in here. I do recommend you use game capture instead of display capture. The difference is that display capture will just capture everything on your screen. So if I go ahead and add one of these with my main monitor, as you can see, it just is recording everything. There is additional latency as far as I'm aware with display capture. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as it used to be, but when you're recording at these high frame rates, you want as minimal latency as possible. So just go ahead and use game capture. So now let's move on to the settings. So click on settings, come down to output, and make sure your output mode is, instead of being on simple, is on advanced. And then we're going to head to the recording section because we're not trying to stream. And now I'm going to talk you through these settings settings so that we can record at a high frame rate. So set your recording path to wherever you want to save the video. Now for the recording format, I have it set at mpeg4.mp4. If you read this warning here, this is not recommended. I just do this because this is what I've always done, and most of the time when I'm recording clips in a game, it's from a replay system or something like that, so I don't really care if the recording gets corrupted. But the alternatives you can use so that that is not an issue is MKV or fragmented MP4. That way, if the software crashes while you're recording, your recording won't be corrupted, or not all of it will be corrupted. But I just use MP4, and I believe there's a slight latency advantage to MP4. So when you're recording at these high FPS, then, you know, you'll be able to get all the latency benefits we can, but it doesn't really matter. Go with MKV, go with fragmented MP4, go with whatever. For small gameplay clips, it doesn't matter. If you're going to be recording for several hours on end, then I definitely would not recommend going with MPEG-4 in case you get 55 minutes through it, the software crashes, you're going to lose all of it. But that's what I'm using just for the sake of this tutorial. Okay, so then after the rendering format, we're going to want to go ahead and choose our video encoder. So the options here, we have X264, which is software encoding, so that's going to be running on your CPU. For high FPS videos, that is just not going to work. CPUs struggle with encoding when compared to dedicated encoders that you'll have on your graphics card. So if this is pretty much the only option you have, then I guess you're going to have to go with it, but I do not think you're going to be able to record much higher than 60 FPS without lagging up a storm. So I would not use X264. And then for me, I have NVIDIA NVENC because I have an NVIDIA graphics card, which has a good onboard encoder. The quality that you're going to get from selecting this will depend on which card you have. So 700 series card, the encoder's not going to be anywhere near as good as it would be on, say, a 30 or 40 series card. But we're going to go ahead and select NVIDIA NVENC H264. If you have an AMD graphics card, then they have their own dedicated hardware encoder called AMD AMF, which in OBS will be called AMD HW H.264. So go ahead and use that. If you have an Intel Arc graphics card, I have no idea what it's called on that. If you have integrated Intel graphics, then you can use QuickSync. But again, your mileage is really going to vary. Without having a dedicated graphics card with its own dedicated encoder, then you're really going to struggle when recording at high frame rates. I know the Arc cards do have their own dedicated encoder, but you're going to have to look into that because I'm not sure even what it's called or where to start with those. So for me, I'm going to go with NVENC H264. If you have an AMD graphics card, go with AMD HW H264. Audio encoder, you can pick whatever you want. I'll just leave on default. And we're not going to be rescaling anything. And now comes the most important bit. So the encoder settings. This is where we're going to tell OBS and our graphics card how we want to encode the video that we're recording. So the options we have for rate control are CBR, which is constant bitrate, CQP, which is constant quality parameter or constant quantization parameter, and VBR, which is variable bitrate. You're never going to want to use lossless. We're going to go with the constant quality or constant quantization parameter, as this is going to allow us to essentially set a quality level, which here you can see I've set 18, and it's going to try and hit that and adjust the bitrate accordingly to ensure that we have consistent quality without wasting a ton of bitrate and producing a lot of encoder overhead like we would with something like CBR. So when recording at high FPS, you're definitely going to use CQP. The CQ level is essentially how high the quality is going to be. So lower numbers mean higher quality. So 18 is pretty high quality. If you notice that your GPU or your recording is struggling, then you can drop this. So you could take it down to 20, 22, something like that. I wouldn't necessarily go much higher than 18, but that's what I use. Keyframe interval 0 preset. Here, when we're using CQP, from my understanding, this doesn't really matter. I tried recording with the lowest quality one and the highest quality, marginal difference. You're going to want to go with fastest, in my opinion. It's going to give you lower latency and your recording will still be high quality. Of course, if you don't like it, you can change these settings to your heart's content. But for me, I'm going to go with fastest, lowest quality. That's going to ensure that we maintain a high frame rate and we don't stress out the encoder to the point that it can't keep up. Tuning, again, ultra low latency. We're going for high FPS here. Multi-pass mode, single pass, profile high, and then I've unchecked look ahead, unchecked psycho visual tuning. GPU is at 0 and max speed frames is also 0. You'll see these are completely different settings to what I have. This is the OBS that I actually record my videos with, so what I'm using to record this video right now, and you'll see completely different settings to what I'm using for a higher quality recording, because we're not targeting high quality. Well, we are targeting high quality. It will be high quality, but not as high quality as it could be, say, if we were recording at 60 FPS, because we're trying to target that higher frame rate to get all that smoothness that we want in our edits. So the last thing to do is come over to video and make sure that your base canvas resolution is set to whatever your monitor's resolution is or whatever resolution you're going to use in game. And we don't want to do any scaling with this, so go ahead and make sure that these are both the same value. And now here comes our frame rate options. So you'll notice it will probably be on common FPS values, so you'll be able to pick from these options. That's not quite good enough for what we want to do. Then maybe you'll try integer FPS values. It will not let you type in anything higher. So if I try and type in 160, it won't let me. 144 won't let me. 120 is the highest you'll be able to type in. Even if I try and make it 121, it's not going to work. So 120 is the highest you can be able to record with this setting, but we can use fractional FPS values to override this. This is unsupported, it's untested, there's not any development into getting these super high frame rates to work, but they do work for the most part as long as your computer can keep up with it. So I've targeted 240 FPS, so 240 over 1 is going to give me 240 FPS. You can bump this up to 360. You could go 480 if you want to go ridiculous. If you're recording a game like Minecraft, that may be totally possible. But for me, whilst recording and playing CS2, I can't hit 360 FPS, but I can hit, 260 to 300 kind of range. So going with 240 is a safe bet because you don't want to be recording frames that don't exist, So keep your frame rate realistic. So I'm going to go with 240 here. I'd recommend going with 60 FPS increments or multiples of 60. So 60, 120, 180, 240. Like that. If you're going to be editing and exporting at say 30 FPS, then you can go with multiples of 30. It's up to you. Like I said before, the refresh rate of your monitor does not matter as long as you hit this frame rate in game. So there we go. Let's go ahead and apply that. And then if you load up whatever game it is that you want to play and you have your game capture configured to capture that window, then you should see it in your preview here. When I'm recording, I like to right click and disable the preview just to save minimal processing overhead. Just gives you potentially a couple more frames, but there's no need to see it while you're recording. So I like to just disable it. And then all you got to do is hit start recording and it will export to whichever file path you set to save your videos to. You'll see in the bottom corner here, we've got 240 out of 240 FPS. If you start to see this drop or on this side, over in this side of the window, if it says your encoder's overloaded or anything like that, or when you watch the video back, you notice that it's really laggy, then you're going to want to come in and you're going to want to tune these settings. So you're going to want to drop your frame rate maybe. You're going to want to reduce or increase this number, therefore reducing the quality until your PC can basically keep up with it. So this is really going to be dependent on how good your computer is. One thing to note with this value here, 18 is pretty high quality. So if you're going to be recording for several minutes or hours, it's going to produce a very, very big file. So just be mindful of that. If the file size becomes an issue, again, you can drop this value, or I guess I say drop it, drop in quality, increase the value. So put it to like 22 or something, and that'll make your file size smaller, but also you won't have as high quality. So here's a video that I recorded earlier, just playing against bots in CS2 deathmatch. So in the details, you can see this is 2.62 gigabytes for 48 seconds of video. So it's very big, but therefore it is also high quality. So just be mindful of this. I have plenty of hard drive or SSD space. I'd also recommend recording to an SSD because you don't want to get bottlenecked by the bandwidth that your drive can offer. So you can see this is recorded. I've recorded 2560 by 1440. You'll be recording at whatever resolution your monitor is, or I guess you want to record at. And you can see this is at a frame rate of 240 FPS. So if we go ahead and watch it, make it full screen. Whether this will come across in a 60 FPS video, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but trust me, I'm watching this on a 165 Hz monitor, so I'm not even seeing the full 240 FPS, and it is really, really smooth for me. Again, it doesn't matter if you can't see it on your monitor, because later on in the video, I will show you how to use these high frame rate videos and essentially squish them down. So we've got 240 FPS. If you want to export at 60 FPS, for every one frame we want to export at, we've got 4 frames in our video, right? Because 60 times 4 is 240. That then means that we can squish those 4 frames into one frame, therefore creating a lovely motion blur. But yeah, you won't be able to tell how smooth this is through the YouTube video because it's only 60 FPS, and I can't even appreciate the full smoothness because I'm only seeing 165 of it. But there you go. That's how you record super smooth video at a high frame rate. Now, just before I explain how you can use AI to turn your lower FPS clips, for example 60 FPS, into higher FPS clips, i.e. 120 to 40 FPS, I want to tell you about a longtime friend of the Rockland channel who's been helping thousands of creators every day to use mainstream copyrighted music in their YouTube videos, and the sponsor of today's video, Licked. Licked is the perfect tool to enhance your YouTube videos by adding popular music tracks. Boasting a massive collection of over 1.3 million popular songs, Licked offers an extensive range for any type of content you want to create. Now you can legally obtain licenses and download music from some of the world's most renowned artists. As content creators on YouTube, we understand the platform's algorithm favors extended watch time, and what better way to keep your audience's attention than with some fantastic, recognizable music, just like the track you're listening to now. Plenty of other massive creators like Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, and the Sidemen are already boosting their engagement using Licked. If you don't license your music legally, you're taking a gamble with YouTube's content ID system, and believe me, you don't want to risk having your video flagged. This could result in anything from demonetization and restricted exposure to regional blocks or even a copyright strike against your channel. However, with Licked, these concerns are a thing of the past. So why wait any longer? It's time to take your content to the next level. Click the link at the top of the video description where Licked is offering an exclusive 50% discount off your first mainstream track purchase, along with 14 days free access to their extensive stock music collection. That's right, 50% off your first mainstream track and 14 days free stock music. So grab this opportunity and check out Licked with the link at the top of the video description and elevate your content today. Now, one thing I want to mention as well, if you cannot record at this frame rate for whatever reason or you don't want to, then what you can do is use a software called Flowframes. See here on itch.io. This is the website for it. I have a video, I'll put the thumbnail on screen right now, as well as you can click the card in the top right corner or the link in the description. It will take you to one of my videos that I made before. The video is using Valorant gameplay, but it doesn't matter, you can use it for any game. The concept is the same. And essentially what it allows you to do is, as you can see in this demo here, you've got this low FPS video here, and you can interpolate the frames to make it much smoother. So essentially what interpolation means is it's going to take frame 1 and frame 2, and say if that's 30 FPS and we want to make it 120 FPS, it's going to insert 3 additional frames between frame 1 and frame 2, right? So that frame 1 has essentially become 4 frames. So you can use this. Of course, the results recording at the higher frame rate in OBS will be better because you're going to be getting real frames, whereas this is just an AI essentially trying to guess what it would look like. But you can do this if you're not capable of recording at that frame rate, or you don't want to, or for whatever reason, you can do this instead. Or let's say you have a clip that you were sent from someone else and you want to use this to make it a high frame rate so that you could do the squishing motion blur thing that I was talking about earlier. I'll cover how to do the motion blur thing at the end of this video, but if you want to know how to use Flowframes, check out my other video on that. It's completely free. Something else you may want to use Flowframes for is for the next part of this video. So now I'm going to teach you how to record at a really high resolution, i.e. higher resolution than your monitor. So I imagine a lot of you will have 1080p monitors. I have a 1440p monitor, but even that probably isn't high enough because on YouTube you want to be uploading at 4K if you can. That's going to give you the highest quality because when you upload at that resolution, YouTube favors your video with regards to how it's encoded to be put on the platform. So it will be at higher bitrate and just overall better quality. And what you can do is either record at 1080p, like you would normally, and then just export at 4K. So it's really just 1080p video, but you've just exported it at 4K. That will give you preference to the YouTube encoder or transcoder, I guess technically, and your video will appear higher quality. But why do that when you can just record at actual 4K? Now, of course, we're not going to be recording at a high frame rate at 4K. Like at 4K, you're probably going to only be able to record at 60 FPS at most. But depending on what kind of edit you're making, this is where you need to make that trade-off. So I've taught you how to record at high FPS. Now I'm going to teach you how to record in high quality, i.e. 4K, and you just pick whichever one's better. It doesn't mean you have to choose one or the other. So for example, if I record at 4K at 60 FPS, I could then use Flowframes to interpolate and then get that 240 FPS. But of course, they're not going to be real frames like they would be if I was recording with high frame rate. Just the same, I could record at a high frame rate, so 240 FPS at 1080p, for example. And then I could use an upscaler, like Waifu 2X is a free one. Otherwise, you have ones like Topaz Labs, but you have to pay for those. So my recommendation for a free one is Waifu 2X. This is the GitHub page for Waifu 2X. Originally, it was used for, as you can tell by the name, Waifu, it was used for upscaling anime, but it works for a lot of different things. As far as I'm aware, there's no online version that can do videos, so you will have to download the actual Waifu 2X software, which looks like this. and you'll see there's a video settings tab, and you can go ahead and use that to upscale your video, so your 1080p video to 4K using AI. I'll leave a link in the description. I didn't make this video, but I'll leave a link in the description that teaches you how to do that. Another alternative that I've come across, I have never used this, so I can't vouch for it, but video 2x as well is another option that you have. You can see it's upscaling. I believe that's Spirited Away. But again, your mileage may vary with these. But essentially, that's a way that you can have the best of both worlds. So you can record at high FPS and upscale it to high quality, or record at high quality and interpolate it to get high FPS. Anyway, back to recording at high quality. So let's say we want to record at 4K. You don't have to record at 4K. You can record at whatever resolution you want, but let's just choose 4K. It does not matter if you have a 1080p monitor, you can still record at 4K, and I'll show you how. So I'm only going to be able to show you how to do this on NVIDIA graphics cards because I only have an NVIDIA graphics card. If you have an AMD graphics card, you're going to want to look for a feature called virtual super resolution, I believe. It's essentially a form of super sampling where you can essentially tell your graphics card to render at, say, 4K, and then before displaying it on your monitor, it will just squish it down to whatever resolution you need for your monitor. So you won't be able to see, obviously, the 4K video using a 1080p or 1440p monitor, but it should be slightly higher quality and adds a kind of expensive anti-aliasing, essentially. But yeah, for AMD graphics cards, you're going to want to look for virtual super resolution or some kind of super sampling setting. I'm not 100% sure, but on NVIDIA cards, it's called DSR or dynamic super resolution. So if we right click on our desktop, go to the NVIDIA control panel, and then go to manage 3D settings and scroll down, you'll see this here says DSR factors. This DL scaling, this here is going to allow us to choose a resolution that we want to be able to record at. So I could record all the way up to 5120 by 2880, which is just excessive. Here it says legacy scaling. So when we have the option here with, 2 times more efficient scaling, then I guess I'm going to just go ahead and use that. I really don't know what the difference between these two is, but I'm going to trust it. It says it's 2 times more efficient, so may as well just use one of these. So the options available to me are 3418 by 1920. That is a weird resolution, but I'm going to go for 3840 by 2160, which is actually 4K. I mean, it's technically not 4K. 4K is supposed to be, I believe, 4096 by 2160, but no one uses that really. Like, you're never going to buy a monitor like that. They all seem to be 3840 by 2160 as far as I'm aware. So we're going to go ahead and call it 4K. So I'm going to select this and press OK. You can see at the bottom here, there's a description that says dynamic super resolution produces smoother images by rendering a game at a higher resolution, then downscaling it to the native resolution of the display using advanced filtering. Dynamic super resolution can be applied to any game and can be used with other anti-aliasing settings to improve image quality. So essentially it's supposed to be used instead of anti-aliasing, or I guess as well as anti-aliasing, but we're going to use it for a slightly different purpose. And then here we've got DSR smoothness. I'm just going to leave it at default, but you can go ahead and mess with this. I imagine 0% would be no added filtering, so I guess it would be more pixelated, I'm not sure, and then 100% would be less, but then I worry that 100% may have some like smoothness algorithm artifacts on it or whatever. So I'm just going to leave it at 33%, and there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, and your screen will flash. So yeah, that means it's now applied, and that means when you come to the change resolution tab, you'll be able to see under here dynamic super resolution. We've now unlocked this 4K resolution. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this. I'm going to have to stop my recording and restart it once I'm at the new resolution just to avoid anything breaking. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now I'm at 4K. You can see everything's got a bit smaller, but you'll see we are actually at 3840 by 2160. So if I go into my display settings, you can see this is our resolution, this is my native resolution, this is the resolution we've now unlocked after enabling this setting. Then what you want to do is, if we open up our OBS that we had before, you can see all the scaling has gone a bit weird. I'll zoom into this so you can actually see it properly. In the settings under video, you're going to want to set your base canvas resolution to the new resolution that we've got, as well as our scaled resolution to be the same. And then if we apply that, and let's just say add a display capture just to demonstrate, and enable the preview, you can see it fills the whole screen, and we are now going to be recording at 4K. Even though I'm looking at a 1440p monitor, I'm not seeing 4K's worth of pixels, but our GPU is outputting frames at this resolution, which we can then record. So then hop into whichever game you're going to use, pick that resolution, and start recording. Let's go over some quick encoding settings. So under output recording, we're going to want completely different settings pretty much to what we had before. So again, change this to MKV or fragmented MP4 or whatever. Just make sure that whatever you pick works with the video editing software you're going to use. NVENC again is completely fine here. The AMD one will be as well. If you have a modern like 20, 30, 40 series NVIDIA card or a RX 6 or 7000 AMD card, the encoder is going to be pretty good and you're not going to want to stick it on the CPU. Also, if you're gaming, sticking it on the CPU will probably cause you to lag, so you may as well just use your graphics card if you can. Then what we're going to want to do is under the encoder settings, again, this is going to vary from person to person. I may be outdated in my ways of doing this, but when I want maximum quality, I like to use constant bitrate. That way I can specify what bitrate I want every single frame to use, so I can ensure I'm getting the highest quality possible. So I'm going to go with 70,000 kilobits per second or 70 megabits per second. This may be overkill. You could drop this down to like 40. I like to record at this. When I export my videos for YouTube, I export at about 40, but I'm going to go for 70. I'm going to put my keyframe interval to 2. This preset we're going to put on slow, high quality, 2 passes quarter resolution. I'm going to turn on look ahead and psycho visual tuning and put my max B frames to 2. This is what I like to use for recording at high quality. So go ahead and choose whatever settings you like, but this is my recommendation. And then just go ahead and apply that. And then last thing we need to do is set our FPS to 60. Apply that, and you can go ahead and start recording. As long as your game is set to also be in 4K, you'll be good to go and record that. Okay, so I've just disabled my 4K res, for the sake of the video, so I can keep recording and not have to mess around with it again, because I'm not actually going to record any gameplay in this video, but I did record some earlier, and this is a frame that I've saved from each. So this is in 4K, this is in 1080p, and this is going to just show you the difference. So if we put them side by side and zoom in, you can see this is my crosshair on the 4K version, this is my crosshair on the 1080p version. So not only are you going to get favorable encoding settings on YouTube, but you're also going to be just uploading a much higher quality video, which is guaranteed to look better anyway. So there's a massive difference. Let's look at some other stuff. So for example, the gun, let's look at this sticker here. Again, can you see the difference between these two? Or let's look at some text. So the health and the ammo, it's just night and day, the quality difference. So if you'd prefer to record at higher quality instead of higher FPS, then this is the best way to do so. If you've recorded at this higher resolution, and obviously you're going to want to make an edit or edit with it, depending on how good your PC is, you may struggle. Or even if you have a great PC, it might just be easier and better and a more smoother editing experience if you didn't have to edit 4K footage. And there's a solution for that. So in Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what I'm going to show you, you can do this in After Effects. You can probably do it in DaVinci, I imagine, although you'll have to look that up because I don't know how to use DaVinci Resolve. And there's probably a similar feature in Sony Vegas, but I'm going to show you how to do it in Premiere Pro, and it's pretty much the same in After Effects. So let's go ahead and open up Adobe Premiere Pro. If you don't have Adobe Premiere Pro or After Effects or any of the Adobe software and you'd like it, then I'll leave a link in the description to where you can go ahead and download it. So I've just got this new project open, and let's go ahead and drag in. So this is the video that I've just recorded earlier when I was showing you the 4K settings. So this was actually recorded at 4K, see 3840 by 2160. So let's go ahead and drag that into Premiere Pro, and you can see it's generating a peak file. Once you've got your 4K video inside of Premiere Pro, let's go ahead and select it. You can have multiple files. You can drag and select multiple videos if you've got multiple 4K videos, which I imagine you will, but in my case, just have one. Then I'm going to right click on it, and you can see proxy here, and I'm going to do create proxies. Now for the format, you can go with H.264 or QuickTime. You can customize the settings here, so I'm just going to go ahead and use QuickTime, and then I'm going to pick ProRes medium resolution. You can go for low resolution if you want, but I have a fairly good PC, so I'm going to go ahead and use decent quality, but obviously not 4K. You can choose what you like, but this is what I'm going to use. And then you'll see next to original media in proxy folder. That way, wherever you've got your original video saved, it will just make a folder called proxy, and it will save a proxy in there. And then you're just going to go ahead and hit OK, and you'll see Adobe Media Encoder should open. Now, in order to make proxies, essentially what you need to do is kind of transcode, re-encode the video from its 4K high quality version to a lower quality proxy. That way we can edit with the proxy, which itself is a lower quality video, therefore being smoother to edit with. It's just going to be less stress overall on your system. And you can see we've loaded up media encoder, and as you can see, it's already started. So here is our proxy. If it doesn't start automatically, you'll see in the corner here, there's the stop and pause buttons. There will be a green play button. You can go ahead and click that, and you'll see it's currently encoding our proxy. And this is the proxy folder, and you can see we've got the proxy is currently rendering, hence why we can't preview it, but it is going to be in there. And I'll be back with you as soon as it's rendered. Because it has to render separate proxy videos, this can take a little while. So if you've got several videos at once, the beauty of doing it with Media Encoder, like I said in Premiere Pro, if you drag and select multiple inside of Premiere Pro, you'll be able to do multiple at once. So you can just leave it, go and, I don't know, make a cup of tea or something, come back, and hopefully it'll be ready to go. So I'll be back with you as soon as this is done. Okay, so as you can see, the proxy is done. So let's go ahead and go back into Premiere Pro, and we're going to right click and create a new sequence from this clip. And as you can see already, it's got this, see this little icon here? I'll zoom into it. That shows that we have a proxy available. So currently we're not using it. So let's hit this plus button, and this is our toggle proxies button. So let's go ahead and drag that onto this little bar right here, press OK. And then if we select toggle proxies, it goes blue, and now we're using our proxy. So we can turn it off and turn it on, and you'll be able to see the difference. If I make this full screen, this is our proxy video, this is our original. You see the difference? So if you want to get a full resolution preview, you can turn it off, but it's going to be a hell of a lot smoother when editing with proxies. And when you're using a little preview window that's this small, you don't need to see every single pixel. It's hardly noticeable. But like I said, if you need, you can disable it, preview it, stick it back on, and that way you'll be able to edit 4K footage on a computer that's not necessarily powerful enough to edit it without using proxies. When you go to export the video, the proxy, whether or not you have proxies enabled does not matter. It will export using the original video, so you'll get high quality. Okay, so now for the final part of this video, we've covered high FPS recording, we've covered high quality recording, we've covered how to make proxies with those high quality recordings, but we have not talked about what to do with our high FPS recordings. So here is a video, like I said earlier, of me playing against bots in CS. This is our 240 FPS video. So if we go ahead and drag that into Premiere Pro, we have a few different options of what we can do. So let's make a new sequence. I'm going to make it 60 FPS. I recorded at 2560 by 1440. You can set this to whatever resolution you recorded at. 60 FPS fine, Rec 709, that is all fine. So let's go ahead and hit OK on that. Now if we drag our clip onto our timeline, it's going to complain saying that it doesn't match the sequence settings, so that's fine. We're just going to go and say keep existing settings, because our video is at 240 FPS, our sequence is at 60 because that's what we want to export at. Again, you could pick 30, you could pick 24, you could pick whatever you want to export at. And let's just disable proxies because we don't have any. I'm going to mute the audio track just because we don't need to hear that. You know, we can play through our video. This is actually running at 240 FPS. Again, you won't be able to tell through the YouTube video. So we have two options as to what we can do with this. So the first is that we can slow the video down. So we've got 240 FPS. Our sequence is at 60 FPS. 4 times 60, or 60 times 4 is 240. Therefore, we can slow this video down by 4 times, aka run it at 25% speed and not drop any frames. The other thing we can do is the squish motion blur thing, which I'll tell you about in a minute, but we'll start with slowing it down. So if you're using After Effects, or I guess you can do it in here, but you'll probably want to use After Effects for time remapping. You can slow down your clip to sync it with music, or if you want to make, you know, dramatic or whatever. I'll put 2 thumbnails on screen right now where I show you how to do the effect in After Effects and in Premiere Pro. And essentially, if I wanted to record at if I wanted to export at 60 FPS and I recorded at 60 FPS, and by doing my time remapping, I slow the video down, I'm going to start dropping frames. If I slow my 60 FPS video down by half, I'm going to be running at 30 FPS, which means for every 2 frames of my exported video, I've only got 1 frame of actual video to show for it, right? So it's going to become choppy, especially when it's not consistent, if it's fluctuating. If you're slowing it down over time, speeding it up over time, it's going to fluctuate and it's just going to look terrible. But by recording at a high frame rate, it means we can slow this down to a maximum of 25% of its original speed and not drop a single frame. If we're exporting at 30 FPS, we could slow it down by 8 times of its original speed, right? So let's go ahead and right click on it and go down to speed duration. I'm going to set this to 25%, and you'll see that even as I go through this, we are not dropping a single frame as we drag through, right? It's just super slow motion CS, and it's super smooth. Because if this was 60 FPS, it would be super choppy. I'll put a clip on screen from my last video where I showed the difference in more detail, so you'll see the left side of the screen is dropping frames and the right side of the screen isn't. The left side of the screen is essentially what would happen if you recorded at the same frame rate you want to export at and then slowed the video down, whereas the right side is what we've managed to achieve by recording at such a high frame rate. The other thing we can do is create a super nice motion blur. So again, we're back here with our 240 FPS clip in our 60 FPS composition. What we can do is right click on it, go to time interpolation, and instead of frame sampling, which means that it will essentially sample whatever frame is present at that time code in the video. So in our 60 FPS timeline, you know, we'll take frame 1 and then we'll we'll take frame 5, and then we'll take frame 9. With frame blending, it's going to take, instead of taking frame 1 and then frame 5, it's going to take frame 1, 2, 3, and 4 and squish them into the one frame, and then it's going to take 5, 6, 7, 8, squish them into another frame. So let's select frame blending. Don't use optical flow for this kind of stuff. You just go on and stick with frame blending, and you'll see immediately, watch here as I turn it on and off. So we're going to do time interpolation, frame sampling, see how there's no motion blur, and then time interpolation, frame blending, see how much motion blur there is, and this looks super natural. If you zoom in really close, you'll actually be able to tell that it's 4 frames in one. Now when I preview this, it's not going to look particularly great in Premiere Pro because it's actually, you know, trying to preview it live, but I've actually rendered this out already, so let's go ahead and watch that. So this is our 240 FPS video that's been squished down into 60 frames. So as you can see here, you can see the blur, so you can essentially see how it's four different frames. So you see over here how we've essentially got 1, 2, 3, 4 versions of this A here. Shows all the different frames that have been squished together. So if I'll play this through real quick, as you can see, we've got this really nice smooth motion blur, which essentially has allowed us to squish our really high frame rate video down into 60, so we can put it on YouTube and people can perceive the smoothness that we've had from recording at a high frame rate whilst watching at 60 FPS. Of course, it's not the same. Watching a 60 FPS video is a 60 FPS video, but it's a hell of a lot smoother than it would be if we just recorded at 60 FPS. And again, you don't have to record at high frame rates in OBS to do this. You could use Flowframes first, and then you have your high FPS clip, which you could then use frame blending on, which I actually cover in the video, which I'll put the thumbnail on screen for now. But yeah, that's pretty much the basics of what you need to know to record your videos for montages and edits. So we've covered how to record at high frame rates, how to record at high quality. We've mentioned a couple AI tools that we can use to get the best of both worlds, as well as how to use proxies so that we could edit smoothly, and how to best use those high frame rate clips, either by slowing them down or by making a natural motion blur. I mean, you can technically slow them down and do the motion blur at the same time. But anyway, that's it for this video. If you guys enjoy, then make sure you slap a like on it, subscribe, leave any comments with any video ideas that you'd like to see on the channel. Big shout out to Lick for sponsoring this video. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.